So recently I've been mentally dealing with the myth of, I could say myth of introverted personality, and so I wanted to talk about some personal experiences I've had recently and conclusions I've come to, thanks to God, obviously, and the means at which He's done that is through people like Jordan Peterson and other content. And I've realised that I push people away, right? And I don't have any friends because obviously I choose not to make the social interaction. Firstly, I do it out of fear of not making that social interaction, but then I do it out of because I feel like I'm fearing messing up in that or saying the wrong thing, so I don't say anything at all, or I fear saying something that has the wrong value, so I say something that doesn't have any value, and then the conversation has no value. So what's the point? The other person will naturally stop. They're not going to take any time to respond. They're not going to take any time to think, or they're not even going to take any time to desire to talk to you if everything you're talking about is like it's meaningless. And if it's meaningless, you have to understand that it's like layers of conversation. So you're just scraping the surface. You've not got into the deeper levels. That's like where the conversation starts, right? You've said one thing, they said something else, then maybe you throw it. So it's like you're playing tennis. So you're just hitting it back and forth for a bit, right? Maybe a new thing until you swing and it just, you know. I mean, obviously in tennis that might not be great, and the analogy is not perfect, but what I mean is you got to sort of understand firstly that other people are going to be making that conscious effort to. They're going to be making that conscious effort to make conversation. If they're not, then don't force it. Don't try and find someone else. But if they are, they're going to be trying, and so you've got to just trust that they're going to try as much as you. So you just got to try it, and that it's usually a subconscious thing. But I'm speaking to people who are like me, who are overly critical to the point of like to the point where it's like you're deceiving yourself and deceiving yourself into thinking that you're having deep and meaningful conversation, that it's enough. It's always about just being enough. You're like, oh, that's enough. I've done it enough. In your relationship with God, you might be like, oh, I prayed enough today. Oh, I've read enough. But as Jordan Peterson said, that's where humility is in the opposite. Where you're like knowing, I don't know enough. I haven't done like, and obviously we have to realise, right? If you in true humility, you will realise these things that you don't have to commit 100% to every single thing. Like, oh, so true humility. If I want to be truly humble, I have to think I'm not doing well enough, or I'm just not doing enough at anything. And so then you get led down to stew. If you have the humility, you realise that that's not. You've got to sort of you got to agree that's true, but work it out to when that's true and use logic and just you think on it. Is situation everything's situational, everything is used to a situational degree. You might throw a few lighter jabs at the beginning of the fight, but when you see them get weak and tired, that's when you might come with, the overhand, that you've been. I mean, you could have just started throwing that the first part, but that might have left you weak and vulnerable. So it's like the quote in the Bible: Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. Work out with fear and trembling, meaning like not just like committing to an idea. Yeah, oh whatever. There's all that, but no, because it will bite you in the arse. That's why other cultures have things like karma, because they understand that things will bite you in the arse. So if you're getting upset, so you're falling into pitfalls because something's bit you in the arse, then it's not about having a strategy how to climb out of the pit, but it's about getting a strategy that stops you from falling in the pit. So it's usually those ones where you feel conviction, perhaps conviction of the Holy Spirit, and it's conviction that this won't be good. If you do this, it's not going to be good. Like this could happen, or like this is going to happen. Like you blatantly know, sort of thing. It's a conviction that's within you, and then you're in a state of phase, or it's like a state of yes or no. And when you commit to an idea in your heart, that's when it is sort of the actualization of the potential to fall in the pit or walk around it. But walking around it is still going to be bumpy. It's still going to have sharp stones, maybe hot coals even. It might even look better just to fall into the pit. But once you're around it, the difference is with these, when you start walking on the hot coals, right, you're in that state where you're kind of like, it's hurting, but I have to walk. It doesn't matter what way, I can walk backwards or forwards, but I've got to walk, right? You're not going to stand still in these burning coals, like the hot potato. You've ever heard of that game with when you was like in school, PE, like year 2, and then just have like a bean bag, and you sort of have to throw it as soon as you get it, right? It's sort of that sort of thing. So you're like a cat sort of scrambling, and that's what you want to do. You want to walk on the hot coals, because even if you get on the hot coals, you turn around quick and walk back. You're just in the same position that you were in beforehand, so you haven't lost anything. But the difference is when you walk into the pit, the ground can be smooth. Yeah, there can be a fall. The fall can be just, the pit can literally just be over your height plus arm length and jump capability. So basically, it can be just tall enough that if you had your arm fully up and you jumped as high as you could, that you just couldn't reach it, and wide enough that you couldn't put your arm, you couldn't use leverage like that. And so it can be smoothed, and then if it's like that, the fall's not going to be it's not going to be too painful, right? Because I mean, it's the least amount of painful that it can be, but the least amount of painful it can be for a pit that you cannot get out of. And the whole point of this is, okay, like the decision, the yes or no, is that okay? Doesn't matter where. In fact, doesn't matter where, which direction, how, or why. But I've got to walk. And this is like your life. This is what I'm sort of, because you can sort of apply this. This is why I talk in like this analogy, so you can sort of apply it. And it also helps me to understand. I'm gaining understanding by doing this. This is like prayer. Because in prayer, I reflect and I learn in the same way that when I'm recording this video, I'm reflecting and I'm thinking. It's unscripted, so I'm learning. And the Holy Spirit's inspired me quite a few of these things. I mean, Christian believes that the Spirit of truth comes over someone when they're speaking truth, because it is truth. But anyway, you've got to walk, right? So consider this. You've got a walk, right? You're going to be in this state, yes or no. You're either going to have to walk and fall into the pit, which you don't know, actually. Imagine you could fall into the pit, but you don't know if you're going to get out, right? So you're taking a risk. It's a big risk. Or you can walk around over the hot coals and the sharp stones, but realise simply if you walk into the pit, you could fall in and not get out, and thus your walk has ended and you just can't walk. Or you can walk over the hot coals, you can walk over the sharp stones, turn back about 10 times, but you still wouldn't have lost anything other than having a bit of burnt feet. But your feet can get so burnt that they don't even begin to feel anything. And so you're going to walk over those hot coals. Yeah. And of course, not a perfect analogy because then you can get infections and such. But once you're over the hot coals, imagine that there's a doctor at the end as well. Or once you're over the hot coals, you're in the city, as it were. And so you can go find the doctor. And that's just more walking. And so what I mean is, by this, unpacking the analogy now, is that in life you can take the easy option. This is the pit, because the pit's often soft, round and comfortable, so that we can lie in this pit, lie around comfortable and cozy. Or you can walk around the pit. In fact, walk around the pit, but unable to escape the glimpse of the pit, so that even while you're walking around on the hot coals, on the sharp stones, you're sort of, looking at, you can see the pit, and you're going to be able to see how cozy it is, and you're going to have to also face the temptation to jump in the pit as well as facing the pain of the hot coals. So in a way, it's a mental struggle also, so you've got to understand that, and that's a part of choosing it. So on one hand, you can take that comfy pit, or you can go around it, suffer for now, but know that only God is infinite. And so how can that path of coals be infinite? And thus how can you say there's no end? How can you say there'd never be an end? And so I think in knowing only God is infinite, and this path of coals, it's got to stop at some point, yeah? Knowing that, you can take every step, knowing that next step could be the one at which it stops, but never rely on that. That's like building your house on the sand. It's like building your house on the sand, because after a while of it not being your last step on the coals, you get more demotivated and more demotivated and more demotivated. So I'd say in humility, know that, and by the way, look into humility. That's the root. Yeah. But as it says in the Bible, in Proverbs, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So, or if it's knowledge, so it says wisdom, knowledge, understanding are passed around in that. But fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So fear meaning respect. So it's like understanding, not just respect, but like, okay, the Lord. Fearing the Lord is like a deep understanding, and humility comes from that understanding. A deep understanding of the grandiosity, a deep understanding of the authority position, a deep understanding of who and what God is, what God's will is, that He is true, and accepting that and grounding that in your heart takes an act of faith. So in that act of faith, you're grounding that in your heart. And if you ground that in your heart, then responding to what is uncomfortable, the struggles, and what is unnecessary in the sense of, oh, I could easily give up, and the devil will try and make you give up. You say to this, like you're fasting, no, go eat some food. No. Doing that, which is potentially unnecessary but necessary for your goal, makes it necessary because it's unnecessary if your goal is basic subsistence and subservience to your own will. But if your goal is God, if your goal is the things of God, if your goal is salvation, walking in faith, if your goal is following Christ, then every struggle that comes to you that is subject to and subjective to following Christ, then to the people that don't, it's unnecessary. Yeah, maybe it's unnecessary to the basic being, but it makes it completely necessary. And that struggle not only is necessary, but has an inherent worth to it. And in some ways, non-psychopathically, can be something you desire after a while and strive for. Uncomfortable logical chain there. Sorry, I'm learning as I'm going along. But yeah, no, I forgot what I was talking about at the beginning. I do have ADHD. But yeah, I forgot what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. But, you know, any comments would be really helpful. If just anything, just say what you want. I'd like to hit, and yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. I think, yeah, but I did want to say that humility, it's the same thing with faith. Humility, you can't just attain it. Solomon says, I think is it in it? I think it's in Ecclesiastes. He says, and he's the same one who writes Proverbs. He says, firstly, what I did was I sought to be wise, and I seek to attain wisdom or be wise. I'm going to be wise. It's like I'm going to be humble then. All right, I'll be humble then. He's like, all right, I'm going to be wise, and he says, I found nothing, no wisdom. Sort of like chasing after the wind, as he said, and so true wisdom. In fact, I'm going to pull up the scriptures if I can find them. I don't know what that noise was. That's got a really snobby. I don't know why it's totally random. Let's see. Last time I went to Ecclesiastes, I didn't really want to go back, so this is quiet. Right, where is off? Right. Alright, so Solomon says, essentially, I said to myself, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my mind has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. Essentially, he didn't say to himself like this, and in the sense of like, okay, this is true. No, essentially what he's saying is my error was, or perhaps because I'm not too clear on this, or at least the intention, but in some way it reminded me that we can like have pride in pride, over-exaggerate and exalt ourselves. And in doing this, we will apply ourselves to something that we cannot match. And if we do that, it won't be any good. I mean, it won't end up well at all. In fact, it is better not to test whether you will fall. Rather, it is to know that that is something you will fall at. And that is not at all to be confused with taking risks, okay? Not at all. Because taking a risk isn't a black thing. It's a black and white thing. So I was going to use the same expression of like, it's not a black and white thing. But I realised it's actually, like I'm trying to say, it's not one thing, it's two things. It's not one option, it's two options. So it's not just a it's not just, you know, yes or no. It's not just a Boolean thing. It's not just a binary thing in the sense of taking it or not. So taking a risk is not a Boolean thing. It's not a binary thing. It's not yes or no. No, you can take a calculated risk, or you can take a blind risk, and there's an inherent risk in taking a blind risk because you're also risking that the risk you're taking is completely blind and and it's going to lead to destruction because, you know, you've taken the risk of not calculating it. But if you calculate a risk, that is how you take a risk. You calculate it in your mind mentally, and it will firstly give you assurance. But if you do not succeed, then your mind is sound in that you tried and you did the right practice. You are blameless. You did what you could, and it perhaps just didn't work. And so, in that sense, you're not going to fall down in tears, in great lament, and you're not going to need, oh, I need to learn this now. No, you already know the process, but you understand that you don't need to learn the process. And okay, what's like, you know, what we got to do next? What else can I do? What can I do better? But rather, you're just gonna have the second bit to learn because you already know the process of making a calculated risk. You already know these things. So, but don't ever as well think, oh, I know this, because then you're doing exactly this. In trying not to, you're doing that because you're saying, right, I won't exalt myself to myself. You know, I won't say I'm the highest of all, because then, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say, but I had something else come in mind. I think that's why. Basically, it's if you're saying I've acquired great wisdom, surpassing all. If you're saying I'm not going to exalt myself, then you're actually you're trying not to do it, but you're going to end up doing it because you're gonna. It's deceit. There we go. I'm trying to follow the thought pattern. So deceit. Never say, okay, you've got to be humble. Like if you read somewhere, all right, the answer to this is humility. Don't fake it. Fake. That's what I do this. And this is great for me, but this is massive for me. But like fakeness. Because if you're like, alright, I've got to be humble, so what's better than not being humble? In your mind, you're going to probably say logically, and logic's great to test things, but it's not always true. Logic only really works with like understanding. So, in some situations, I guess, but I don't know. But deceit to yourself is the worst because then you're building your house upon the sand. In the same, because if you build your house upon the rock, which is Christ, then that's secure. It's not sort of, because I mean, sand is rock because it's just rock that's sort of been, I believe it's something to do with it either being eroded by the wind bashing against it or the sea bashing against it, hence the coasts eroding. So it's perhaps to think of it as building your house upon the one big rock, the one that it's not two, it's not three, it's not got parts, no, it's one big rock, but sand is like tiny, 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 tiny rocks, and so many of them, and so they move about one another, you know, and if a few fall, if a few were unreliable, then we know with sand, like, sort of fall, that will just fall down, and then that will fall down. It's like dominoes. And so when you build your house upon that, maybe if they fall, then that whole sand can, you know, just domino effect, fall, and then the foundations come down, and then the house come down, you know. So it's better that, because the potential that 100 rocks, for instance, essentially what you're relying on, these things, like if I rely on the Bible, then the Bible is, well, if I rely on the Bible, which I believe is the word of God, then God is my rock. So, well, it's teaching to the church, etc. But if I built, it's like a 50-50 chance with a big rock, one big rock, but with 100 of them, there's 150-50 chances. Do you know what I mean? So I'd rather and by the way, it's not like 100 times more secure, because I'm saying that these rocks are relying on each other, these 100 rocks, because they will be, and they will be affecting each other in some way, because they share one thing, which is you and your life, sort of, you know. So that's why it's good to think of it in a landscape like that. So yeah, random video, but hope something was learned for you and for me, because I mean, in making these, I learned so much, literal pouring of knowledge. That's why Jordan Peterson, he says, like, reading's great, but writing is like really good. That's like synthesis. That's where it's like, it's not just where you're documenting the thoughts per se, but rather it's actually where the thoughts are synthesized. So in making these videos, I'm synthesizing the thoughts. And so I urge you also to make videos, even if it's for your own personal gallery, library. I would probably get a hard drive and put it on there, because the amount of extra Google storage I've been paying for is crazy. But like, even if you just record the videos for yourself, don't hold back, just talk in confidence, just let it flow, don't resist the Holy Spirit, and yeah, you'll synthesize. You can't sit and wait and hope to gain, but rather, if you move, you can lose, but you can also gain. And so, what are this video? I'm on 28 minutes 55 seconds. If I've learned nothing from this, well, what have I lost? 28 minutes 55 seconds. But if I gain, I can gain loads. I can gain beyond measure. And so, yeah, even if it's for yourself, and I'm not saying it for yourself in the sense that you're rewatching it, but no, consider yourself still, if you're doing it for yourself, consider yourself still the creator of the video and not the viewer. Consider I mean, you can go back and watch it, which is a good idea, but don't have that as the first intent. Have that as like a, okay, this can also be good, because this can do better, you know, this can make a more profound installation of my mind. But rather think of it as, I'm doing this because in making the video, I will naturally flow in self-conversation to a point of unraveling certain things, because you can have loads of tins, loads of just loads of plain tins in the thingy, in the cupboard, but you're not gonna know what's inside, like what's inside them until you start opening them. But once you open them, you don't know what can pour out. Especially if you had the tins in there for a while, you might get something mouldy. But yeah, right. This is probably time to end the video. God bless. Amen.